Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special episode of the Squadron podcast, also known as episode 62?
63. 62 was that last episode.
63.
63.
We were going to do a different topic.
We were going to make a deck.
Literally this morning. News from the frontier.
Really weird news.
Not weird. Very, very, very sought after and...
Big hit to Green Hero.
Yeah, big hit to Green Hero.
Big hit to Green Hero. Boba Fett is suspended.
But in all seriousness, Boba Fett has been suspended.
The yellow one. The villain one.
Premiere
Get him out of here.
in Star Wars Unlimited. Now, there's a couple things to go over here.
All my coping and
Immediately.
seething in that Is Boba a Problem video paid off.
Oh, and not the last two episodes where you explicitly stated ban Boba.
Well, see, at the end of the day, I didn't really get what I wanted, did I? Because he got suspended.
So, what does suspended mean? Let's start with that.
They released an article, and they clarified this in that article, that there is a few forms of how SWU is going to do this. And when I say this, I mean errata, ban, blah, blah, blah. So at the top, we've got banned. These cards, they ain't ever coming back. They're out. They are just gone. Like that's reserved for cards that I personally probably don't think will see more than maybe one or two of these in the game's lifespan. But they're for cards that have just gone completely in the unintended direction.
Usually what happens with these ones is there is one interaction between it and another card that breaks the entire game.
Yeah.
And when that, like, oh, I can play this and always win, and it cost me like 5 mana. And people are like, oh.
Just like really easy, uninteractable, and unskillful infinite combos are usually what get spammed. There is an infinite combo in this game, but it's not really that good. It's pretty fine, but meh.
Talked about it a bit last week.
Yeah, it takes a lot of actions to get the wheels
a lot of
going.
setup.
Yeah, but that's banned. That's at the top. We've got where old Uncle Boba's sitting, suspended. This means he's hit an early retirement, but he may come back to serve later on.
Absolutely.
It's stated that every few months, the dev team will look over at the suspended cards and decide whether or not the card pool and meta has adjusted in a way that card can be reintroduced in a healthy manner. And Boba's currently sitting there, which we think is good.
Yeah, you got to assume that looking in this, Boba's not going to get looked at until probably after the Galactic Championships, I would say. I would be very surprised if it was before Galactic Championships that he was returned to us. But
Return of the King.
But yeah, so that means essentially he is effectively banned for all Premier matches. So if you're playing your Twin Suns, play your Boba Iden on Twin Suns
If you're playing
deck.
Sealed, Boba's all good. If
Boba's all good to go.
Cube at home or whatever, Boba's all good.
But for the Premier constructed,
he's out of here.
He is not able to be played in any tournaments, including like the locals to the Galactic Championships.
There's two more that we got to go through. Limited. This essentially just means that a card is reduced to 1 copy instead of 3 in a deck, if it's limited.
Actually, interesting thing about the limited thing that they have, a few things that they were talking about with limited is there was actually a few different things that they were looking at with limited. One was it could be a reduce, or it could be 2, it could be 1. The other thing is it could be limited in a way where it can't be included with a different card in the same deck.
Yep.
So essentially, in that situation where they would have to ban a card, now they don't have to ban a card. They can say, hey, you can't have both of these cards in one deck.
Other card games have done both of these types of limited to great success, where they have a limited list and you can only run a playset of one type of limited card in a deck and no others, or this card can't be included if this card is included. Essentially banning a specific deck
or a specific combo,
but not outright removing the cards from the game. And then errata. Many people will be familiar with this. For those of you who aren't, that is changing a card's text to its intended or a less powerful version to make it match up easier with the meta. For instance, a notable errata on Boba Fett could have been changing his flip deploy cost, but as noted, Boba had multiple problems, which we will go into in a moment, that
Yeah.
caused his.
And one of the things they said is errata is usually the last. Like banned is pretty far down there,
Yeah.
but errata is actually really far down on the list
Because it's-
for the biggest reason that we talked about when we talked about what to do with
Yeah.
Boba
Yeah.
video. Because if a new player comes in and just sees the cards and builds a deck, they are building the deck with the wrong cards.
Yep.
And this is what happens when a physical, like if you're playing Hearthstone or you're playing
easy.
Legends of Runeterra,
You can
they
just
can be like,
change it.
oh, we'll
Just
errata
update
that.
just
and-
update the text on the card,
Exactly.
you're done.
So anyone that picks it up goes, this is what the card does.
But all of our guys are printed on real life, actual delicious cardboard.
Which is fantastic when you love opening packs and playing
Eating
in person.
cards.
But it's not so good when someone says, hey, let's change this person's power to a 3/7 not a 4/7.
Suddenly you have a bunch of confusing rules. It is more confusing to normal and even veteran players than it is to just ban it. Because if you were a new player and you sit down against someone and they go, hey, this is banned because XYZ was too powerful. 99% of the time that person's going to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. But if you sit them down and go, hey, this card actually says this and this, and they go, why? And then you have to explain more of the reason as to why. You can't just leave it at because it had a couple of powerful decks and won a bunch.
And essentially, at the end of the day, this, you might be saying, oh, but people can still pick up Boba and be like, I can play him. If somebody has picked up Boba they've first looked at SWU, they've picked up Boba, they've put together a deck for him, they've brought it to their locals, that deck is not the problem. And you can go, hey, by the way, this leader is banned.
Play him for tonight.
But play him for tonight, have fun, just make, like next week, see if you can find another deck that you really like. We can help you out, we can build you a deck for you.
That player's
kind of
new.
stuff.
They're not going to...
Exactly. If a player knows enough about the game to build the Boba deck that is a problem, they're gonna run across that is not able to be played anymore.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is, I guess let's just dive into it. We discussed this a little bit in one of our previous episodes, but Boba was seeing a lot of PQ.
So I think the official thing that was put out when they banned him was that he had a 40% participation rate.
That was at the beginning.
Across all of
That was at the beginning.
That was,
it was over all of it. It was a 40%.
Yeah.
About 55, and I think that, like, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the top cut percentage was like 80% or something crazy.
I think over the entire thing, it was 40% play rate to a conversion of 55% top 8.
Which is, that's over half of the decks in a top 8.
Yeah.
And that is nearly half of the decks out this whole PQ season. That's nearly half of the decks of Boba Fett. That's
And I think it was like
really
a 80,
bad.
like a 70% win rate.
Yeah, I have only ever seen that happen one other time in one other card game as One Piece with Whitebeard, and that caused a lot of people to stop playing the game, and it caused me to not get into the game. And I'm a huge One Piece fan, my little ace tattoo, but and they didn't address that for like 4 or 5 sets, and by that time people had quit. So once again, huge props to FFG.
Yep.
Huge props. They released an article, they filmed a video, and they made posts on all of their social media accounts explaining why in great detail, answering all of the questions.
They
in
did
a
not do
written
this
and verbal
lightly.
form.
They did not do this half-assed or offhandedly. They listened to what the community had to say, made a decision based on actual things that were going on in the card game, and
They used numbers, actual numbers.
and did a really good job of being like, this is why, and this is what we're doing. A lot of the time, people will be like, hey, we released a ban list. This is the ban list anyway. Bye.
Yeah, they'll give a very brief explanation as to why. And a lot of that time, if you go and look into other card games, a lot of the other reasons will just be, it's just not the intended purpose of the card, or creates conflict for future cards. And you're like, okay, that doesn't actually explain why this card needs to be banned. Whereas in this one, we got an article, a video, and multiple social media
an apology.
Honestly, an apology that, in my opinion, is very appreciated, but isn't warranted. I think that the devs did like in that video, I think Danny's really apologetic. He explains that, hey, we messed up. We made this leader under the pretense of it wasn't as powerful as we initially thought. We now realize that that's a mistake. And hey, honestly, I think.
And when you read the article, the first thing in the article is, so we messed up. We made a mistake, and this is what we're doing about it.
I don't know about you. I do know about you, but I think that I've never had the pleasure, and it is a pleasure, of being in a card game with a competitive team and design team who actually cares so much about what the community has to say and how it gets implemented. And even the people out there who are really mad about Boba being banned, which I actually really haven't seen that many people, feel pretty okay with it because of the explanation they got. I also do want to say, I'm a big fan of clowning on Boba players, but please don't. If someone comes to your locals and they're like, maybe they weren't the best and you didn't enjoy playing against them when they had Boba, but they're still coming, they're still playing the game, don't force them out. Just be like, all right, man, we've had our fun, Boba's gone. I know you probably feel pretty bad about that, but hey, what can I trade you or do with you?
We have people in our locals that played Boba from set 1 before he was a problem.
They loved him.
And loved to play Boba. And those people are fully valid. And we never shit on them even when Boba was massive, because it was massive. Yeah, you're going to play it. And now that it's banned, we're going to go, favorite leader got banned. That sucks. Anyway, come play with us.
Yeah, play Cad Bane or something. I think the biggest thing is, in our video where I talk about Boba, I get heated. But I get heated about the deck. And I think that, whilst I think that people who haven't played the game a lot picked up that deck and were able to win with it when maybe that is a bit skewing in a competitive environment, I don't think that's the individual's fault. In my opinion, that's a design flaw, which has been apologized for and completely unintentional by the dev team. But it's less of a, man, all the Boba players are brain dead. Well, hold on. The deck is brain dead. The players aren't. We have people in our meta who are incredibly good players who played Boba, and we had people who weren't great players who played Boba, and some of them might win over you, and others definitely will win. But I think the biggest problem with decks like that is high win percentage, but it also is a skill cap on you. Yes, you, not you, but you, because you play that deck and you don't learn anything.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of things to go over on why Boba was banned. We're going to go over that a little bit now.
Yeah.
And
Bring
there's two main reasons.
There's three main reasons.
Yeah, I feel like... I think I'm adding two of them together.
There are two bigger than the other, but there is...
And it's pretty much the entire card is one of the biggest things. Yeah. Actually, no, you're right. There are three main reasons. Yeah. There are three main reasons. The three main reasons are his ability. His ability was so easy to get off and so consistent that it caused the amount of value that you got from him to be astronomical, especially on his flip turn, how easy it was to untap 3 resources, something that no other card in the game until set 3 could do.
Well, that card also requires you to kill your own units,
yes.
But where Boba... So my biggest thing with Boba Fett, and I've explained this to a few people as to why I think that his leader abilities are negative, is leader abilities are meant to heighten and add on to or broaden a dynamic that exists in the game and give you an alternative way to build around that. Yeah. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a Sentinel leader who wants you to heal. Thus, you can run cards with grit and healing cards, and you build a deck like that. You've got Chewbacca, who gives cards that don't have Sentinel, and it means that you can run a lot of unorthodox other cards. I mean, even Sabine is a leader that pings damage, but allows you to also build around that with hardcore swingy cards and things like that. Whereas Boba Fett's ability just said, hey, you know how to win the game you kill your opponent's units and hit their base? I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to reward you for that. Like, Sabina's probably the next closest leader to that. And I have heard some outcry for her to go next. And who knows? I don't certainly know. But I think she would be the next closest contender for a similar ability where it's just tap and deal damage. But Boba Fett did it better, because while Sabina's tap and deal damage, Boba Fett was kill this and do this and then untap one and play this, and it was play extension in a way that isn't healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is, like, to be a strong ability would be something along the lines of, on his leader side, when an opponent's unit leaves play, you may tap him. The next Underworld card you play costs one less.
Yeah, free Greedo.
Yeah, free Greedo, free McClunky. You're still getting those kind of things, but you're not able to go awesome. Flip Boba, the overwhelming barrage,
and then untap 2 Boba's armor.
Swing, so it's causing a lot, like, you have to choose where you're using those resources rather than having them completely broad like they currently are. Being able to play like, and now I'm going to play untap 1 and play Vader, or I'm going to play Vader and untap 1 and then play this.
You want to build around, you want to build around not a leader that is just clearly a cut above the rest because he goes, here's how you win the game, and I'm going to let you do that better.
You want to have a leader that actually has an archetype to build around.
Yeah.
And Boba didn't have that because of how generic his stuff was.
He was pretty two-dimensional, and he had no dynamism about him. It was just, hey, here's a bunch of just good yellow cards, and there's a bunch of good cards in every other color. Pick a color. Doesn't matter what color.
Yeah.
Pick a color, and I'm just going to let you play that color better than everyone else.
And which leads us to our second reason.
Right.
And that is the cards in the deck. Because there is not one, but 2 specific cards designed for Boba.
Both in the same colors.
Both in the same colors as him, and insanely good.
Yeah.
Boba's armor, the 2 cost, +2/+2. Whenever you deal damage to Boba, -2 of that damage. Crazy. Turns Boba into this unkillable machine that can only be killed by blue. The only way to beat that Boba, just slapping on Boba's armor, was to be like, Rivals Fall, or spend so much value trying to get rid of him that it almost takes you, takes you completely out of the game.
It loses you the game, because you have to spend pretty much all the cards in your hand, pretty much all the cards on your board, and all the while that's going on, your opponent can just mess that up at any point by playing another card or something like that. And then Fire Spray comes in ready and just kills you.
Yeah, it's a 6 cost, 5/6,
after Boba,
and comes in readied when you have Boba as a leader. So even if you got rid of Boba, it's there, or a unit. So if he's deployed, it comes in readied, and that's just 5 damage to base. Adding in on top of that stuff like a new adventure, surprise strike, stuff like that. You're doing almost half, up to half of your opponent's base, up to a third of your opponent's base damage.
Or half if they're running a 25 health base.
In that one go, which is something that almost no other deck can keep up with on I have nothing to I have everything system.
It's explosive, it was aggressive, and it did all the archetypes in one. It was the ultimate mid-range value deck, because it could control no matter what color you picked. It could aggro no matter what
essentially
color.
it was no matter what color you picked, because it was essentially, all right, you're going yellow? Awesome. Here's Bodhi, Rook, and Cunning. Oh, wow, okay. Add on top of all this stuff that's already happening, Bodhi, Rook, that's picking the pieces, the only outs that I have in my hand away, and Cunning, which is, you all know Cunning.
Yeah.
It's Cunning.
Yeah.
Moving on to green, where they just go,
Overwhelming Barrage.
hey, I'm going to ramp turn 2.
Here he is.
And then you go, oh.
And plus OB, which we already
Yeah.
know swings games, and that deck didn't need it to swing
No.
any harder. Red, which had the nefarious turn 1 play of ISB Agent into Tarkin Town, into Kylo's TIE Silencer, which is wild. Killing your opponent's turn 1 play and getting 4 damage worth on the board for next turn.
Yeah.
That is insane.
They're being able to triple dark raid out a bunch of stuff. And that still exists. You can still do that if you want to play.
But you're not untapping while you do it.
Exactly.
You're not going triple dark raid, swing into this, untap one, flip Boba,
and
swing, untap,
yeah, that
triple
whole thing is
dark
like, okay,
raid.
I can still play an ISB agent, kill their turn 1 play, and play another 1-drop, right? Like that still exists.
But not a 2-cost 3/2 space unit.
Absolutely. And so this is the kind of thing, like both of those things added together, the value of the cards that he could get, and where you would just add the most valuable cards of a color and fire spray, some armor in there, and the good yellow cards, and suddenly you have a deck that can like so easily go up against the best of them, or beat the best of them, as the case was.
Just out of nowhere too.
Yeah.
You could pick that deck up because I think the biggest offender of this one is the I think it's the Manchester Boba, the green one. Had fairly linear play line. It wanted to go turn 1 play of just anything. A Greedo, a Crafty Smuggler, something like that. Turn 2, ramp.
Yeah.
Turn 3, Boba Barrage, armor. And then after that, if your opponent couldn't deal with you, you won.
Which it's almost impossible to deal with. It's possible if you get a fantastic hand and have all the right pieces for it.
After that point, it can be a little bit more. Once you've made it past the fire spray turn, it's a little bit more difficult for Boba after that. But the problem is,
it was so hard to get past
if you can get rid of the Boba armor and you can deal with the fire spray, you have still spent so many resources to do that, more than they've spent to just do that.
And I think this is probably the biggest thing that comes into the third reason why Boba was so strong. And it was just simple numbers.
Yep.
Simple numbers. And being able to ramp to a turn early made his flip at 5, 4/7 stat line. What are you going to do?
So
at 5, it's cooked.
Yeah. Even though he's suspended, so he objectively, before his suspension, was the best stats to flip ratio of any leader in the game.
Anyone that comes close is the new Palpatine.
Yeah. And he don't flip.
He's got that nothing stat line for nothing.
He's got that turn 2 flip to his leader backside. But no, genuinely, oh my god. And they admit that too. They were like, we overpowered him because we thought his ability was going to be weaker than it is, because we thought people would be wasting time trading and losing the aggro. Turns out, if you pivot to trading and play a slightly more attrition-based, not even long game, you just win. Because you can outplay them, outboard them, and just beat them to death. And then having a 4/7 leader, which is unreasonably difficult to deal with at 5 resources, ridiculous to deal with at 4 resources, and then they suddenly turned it into a 6/9 that takes 2 less damage from everything at 4 resources. That is absurd, especially when Fell the Dragon and kind of.
Especially when he's also overwhelming barrage that turn, so he's now 9/11 or something.
Yeah.
I don't think he does that. But those are the kind of 3
very good reasons.
You might be saying, but you just pointed to all of him.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason why he was suspended.
Stop being all of you.
And that was the thing. Like, if there was one part of him that was a problem,
you'd errata
if there was you could errata it. If there was another part of him that was a problem, you could ban. Maybe you could suspend Fett's fire spray or Boba's armor. But the fact is, the problem with Boba was all of Boba.
Yes. It takes all of me to love all of you. And Boba Fett, none of me loved all of you.
And now you might be sitting there thinking, hang on a second. Hold on.
I'm holding on.
I have played Boba.
Mm-hmm.
And I've found that there's definitely some counters out there for him. Like, yes,
100%.
he's very strong,
Yeah.
but there's definitely a bunch of counters out there for him that could get rid of him. I've found him to actually be quite fair and balanced. And you're not wrong. There are counters out there for him. There are ways to beat him. He was not an unbeatable Demon King.
No.
But there are two reasons
Pretty pog, though.
why this still needed to happen. The first reason is because of the effect it had on deck building.
Ugh. I hate when a card and deck warps my format so that I have to include specific cards into my deck, meaning that my normally good matchups would become bad because I have to waste space.
And all meta decks will do this.
Oh yeah.
Every meta deck that has ever meted has warped the format to have counters to it. It's how a card game works.
Love that.
But Boba did it so badly, even when Boba wasn't meta, he warped the format. Even when people were off Boba, which there was a little part there where people were off Boba,
100%.
he still warped the format. He had this ability to be in people's heads, and you had to always be prepared for him.
Just gonna put these in just in case.
And unfortunately, a lot of it was upgrade removal for Boba's armor.
Yep.
Other things. There's a few other things that you could do. Stuff like you could regional governor to stop the ramp. There was a few different other things, but one of the big things was that upgrade removal, making sure they couldn't play the Boba's armor.
Yeah, it was like confiscates and disabling Fang fighters,
which are not good cards.
No,
I'll be honest with you.
they suck.
They are not good cards to draw in any
yeah.
other matchup.
I've had to run confiscate in my decks, and every time I drew it, I was like, for God's sake, and I never played against a Boba on those days.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't get there.
And so it causes you to create these decks that are really good, and then you take them to your locals and you go, oh, right, I forgot the Boba counter, and now I'm just going to kind of fall to pieces, and then I have to change it up, and then I have to put all these counters in, and the deck's just objectively worse now because of this. And that's terrible. People don't like doing that.
Yeah, no one wants to do that.
It makes everybody sad. Which brings me to the second reason why Boba still had to be banned. And that is perceived balance versus actual balance. This is a major thing in all competitive environments. You look at competitive video games, you can look at competitive card games. This is a thing that you will see happen constantly. A character that is disliked needs to be nerfed even if they are balanced. Because a perceived imbalance is just as impactful as an actual imbalance.
It's still an imbalance.
Because even if Boba, you are in a vacuum, I have this counter, and then Boba, and they all make this really nice triangle. In reality, 70% of people were bringing, 50% of people were bringing Boba. So it was everywhere. You had to verse it every match. You had to see it. You had to verse it, and it was just constant.
It's just because he is accessible and easy to understand compared to other leaders. Mm-hmm. He's very forgiving, and that's a good thing to have in card games. You want decks and leaders like that. But when it's too widespread and it's too easy to access, it becomes bad. And guess what, guys? I'm going to give you a hint because it's in the name. This is a card game, and games are meant to be fun. So when someone sits down against you and pulls a deck out, and you sigh, and they sigh because you sighed, no one's having fun. You might want to play Boba, and fair enough, he might be your favorite character, and power to you, the guy is pretty sick. But there is something to consider that your opponent might not have fun, and then that's going to cause you not to have fun. Even if you're the kind of person who's like, yeah, I'm actually super really cool and competitive, and my opponent doesn't need to have fun, it's still going to bother you when your opponent goes, not this. Because, hey, that's happened to me. I've built decks that people have gone, not this. And even though my mentality was just suck it up and play against me, it wasn't fun.
Still sucks.
And it just made me more annoyed because I just didn't want them to complain. But you know what? At the end of the day, I got over that and realized that I want to play this game competitively, but the competitive portion of it should still put fun first.
Which brings us to the reality of what's happening. And the reality is what's happening is it's done. He's been suspended. This is no longer a talk of should he or shouldn't he. This is no longer a talk of would-be's and has-beens. This is a talk of what has happened. And he has been suspended. Which means that whether you like it, whether you don't like it, you have to accept the fact that it's done. And while I've seen some negative reactions to it, overwhelmingly
Barrage.
positive. People saying, I can play again. You could always play though. Well, I could always play a game.
I get to play the game I fell in love with again, where I get to play against a number of different leaders. And ultimately, nah. Boba's in the box. Boba's in the box. Nah. Get him out of here. Woo! He's gone.
He's out of here. He's gone.
But James.
That's me.
Boba Fett, yellow villain. See?
Yes.
Bueno. Now we've removed the very clear-cut leader in yellow villain. Mm-hmm. Well, what fills that vacuum? What do I play now? Because let's say I, much like many other people out there, just simply put, enjoy yellow villain. I really like it.
Excellent.
And now that the best yellow villain leader is gone, what am I going to do?
I'm so glad you asked.
Thrawn.
I saw someone say that. They're like, guys, Boba Ban was... guys, it wasn't good. Now Thrawn Hard Control is going to take over the entire meta.
I mean, no.
He was so sure of himself. And maybe he's right.
Hey, I
don't think so.
There is a free space now, but there is a couple of people we want to talk about. Firstly, can we cover him off because we have fat copium for this guy. We absolutely love this guy.
C to the add to the bane,
it's
baby.
Him. He needs no introduction, and we gave him one anyway.
And Cad Bane, we're high on him. We really like him.
He's so fun.
Very, very good against Sabine. If you're having trouble against
Play
Sabine,
red.
hey, buddy. Either blue or red. Cad goes nuts against Sabine.
But Cad is great because Cad isn't overpowered.
No.
He has so many decks that can beat him. And take it from both of us who have played Cad in, I think, combined every color at least once at our locals, if not multiple times. I know for a fact that we're both very high on red and blue Cad. For a very long time, I helped
Cad.
I helped a good friend build green Cad, and played around with yellow Cad for a while as well. And I got to say, all of those decks, powerful, interesting in their own right, and can be countered. And the thing that makes Cad interesting is all of him. He's to me, he's the opposite of Boba because his ability is a build around. Mm-hmm. He wants you to include a specific set of cards
and only gets the value when you play those cards.
And those cards are in every color. So you might be going, oh, well, then it's just as widespread. But no, because those cards do different things in each of those cards. All of the Underworld cards exist, and they're there. But they all do interesting and unique things, and the deck takes on a completely different profile when you
Both
play
of us built red Cad, and we built it very
so
differently.
So different. You built really event heavy.
I went really event heavy and ambush.
And I went very Underworld and burn focused. I was playing a lot of deal damage cards and just a lot of Underworld units.
But we couldn't recommend more or picking up Cad, taking it to your locals, enjoying that.
So much fun.
But Reese, I'm not going to lie. My favorite card is Fett's Fire Spray. I'm gutted.
Yeah.
It's my favorite card.
Oh, hold on. Let's pretend I have a Fett's Fire Spray right here.
Yep.
If you're going to read this for me, can you read this top line here where it says it enters ready? See how it
Yeah.
says Boba and then...
Shango.
And who's in set 3?
Oh, Django leader.
Django Fett,
A 3/7.
who still deploys at 5, who can still use fire spray.
And honestly has a pretty fun ability that goes with it.
I really like him.
One that can easily be built around, especially if you want to do overwhelming barrage, like that's also an option.
One thing I saw that I genuinely really
I
like.
don't know whether it does. I don't think that unit deals damage.
It does. The unit
it?
deals damage divided as it chooses.
Ah.
Yeah, it's really good. You can still play a Boba deck realistically with yellow Django or green Boba, but yellow Django is going to be closer to that green Boba experience. But this time, there's no armor, and it is easier to deal with, and his ability isn't just going to get you ahead.
Yeah.
It's going to be really cool, and a couple of really cool interactions I like. We got that new Holdout Blaster 1-cost card that says when it's equipped, that
Yes.
unit deals the 1 damage.
True.
So you can live out your
Hit
Boba
up an
dream,
upgrade and tap.
but literally put the 1-cost upgrade onto Django, ping something for 1 and tap it, and boom, there's your 5-cost 4/7 leader ready to go. But he is cool. He is interesting, and his ability isn't overpowered. And you might be going, okay, well, Boba's ability was untap, and this one's just tap. So how does that add any dynamism to the game? Because tapping a card is not something you can always do, and it's not always something that the game wants you to do.
Honestly, if Boba said when an opponent's unit is exhausted due to a card effect, untap a resource, he would be balanced.
Yep, because then you'd have to be Asteroid Sanctuary or No Gooding to Me Dead.
Which is a lot nicer to your opponent than killing it.
Yeah. I think that overall, Green Django is going to see some interesting and fun play. I mean, turn 1 Poggle into a turn 2 Commando Droid ambush, and then having a Battle Droid to just ping into something to tap it.
Yeah.
Running those Holdout Blasters. Hell, running Overwhelming Barrage and going right into a Fire Spray. But it's not the same because you can't do it quickly. You can't do it as efficiently. And most importantly, Django Fett will only ever let you do really one thing a turn on that first few turns. Whereas Boba had the propensity to allow you to do 2 to 3 things on that turn.
Yeah.
Django Fett's flip turn, you get 1 5-cost card. No 5-cost card, wipe your board, play a unit. No 5-cost card, play this card that makes my leader unkillable. Just a good old-fashioned, very frustrating,
Do you one thing.
overwhelming barrage, and do your one thing. Just the one. And that's why Django is more balanced.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. I can still play my Fett's Fire Spray. But I was really into Boba Red. And I really enjoyed Boba Red, and CAD just doesn't really do it for me. I want an earlier flip, aggressive leader.
That likes playing its cool burn events.
And
things
yeah,
like
and
that.
likes playing its cool burn events. Yeah, exactly. And maybe we can put some discard in there. I wouldn't mind that.
Oh. Well, you know what's actually really, really cool?
Tell me.
She's a sister with no mister, because she's a night sister mister. It's a Sarge Ventress.
Honestly, both of the yellow villains that have come through this set,
all 3 of them. All three of them
are fantastic. Awesome. And if you're sitting there going, man, Boba's banned and he was my favorite, and I loved playing villain yellow so much. Not necessarily Boba, just I loved playing villain yellow so much. You are eating good. You are eating all the morsels.
At the very least, there is 4 other really good leaders to play.
And then there's Thrawn, who also exists.
I think Asajj is so fun.
Oh, I'm so keen to build a Asajj deck.
I built a hand discard deck with her. I am a huge lover of hand discard.
Yeah.
I completely understand if you don't like it, and I'll be the first to say it. It's pretty rough, and it can come off as skillless. 100% agree with that. Hand discard is closer. Hand discard is pretty close to aggro a lot of the time as well, in the kind of ways it operates, by just burning your resources really quick and burning its own resources really quick. But if you don't build it hand discard, well, mighty my, oh fine. I tell you what, running that as a mono yellow deck with McClunkies and Cunnings is awesome. And it's not OP because, hey, I flip my Asajj Ventress, open fire. But hey, she's not useless because I can still get the +1 attack from playing other cards and events.
Yep. Surprise
Striking one card and then being able to attack with the extra power for the other because you just used an event. Plus, she's an aggressive early flip leader who accommodates for that event style play. And we have, to this day, until now, not seen a leader that specifically mentions playing events.
A leader, no.
Not a leader. And I think that's pretty cool. Makes me chuffed.
And here's my conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
Putting it out there. This was planned from the beginning.
Overstat him. Make everyone hate
this
him.
was all planned from the beginning. Do you know how I know that? Now that Boba is removed, how many exclusively hero cunning leaders are there? Oh, why there's just 6. And how many exclusively villain cunning leaders are there? Oh, would you look at that? It's also 6. And then there's Palpatine, which is both.
He's playing both sides.
So, now that Boba's banned, we have an even number of cunning leaders on either side.
Yeah.
Coincidence?
I think not. This was orchestrated by the Sith. Speaking of...
Always 2 there are.
No, good card. And finally, there's one leader I want to talk about, very close to my heart. Time to abandon ship. It's General Grievous.
Could not get away with not talking about this card because...
I love it too much.
He loves it too much. He's played it in 2 gameplays in a row and is keen to play it more.
I played it a lot at locals. I went to locals and I played my very fast, very quick Lando aggro deck. I went 2-2 with it because it's Lando. 2-2. But afterwards, I offered my opponents, would you like to play against General Grievous? I got about 10 Grievous games in that night and I won all of them. Now, I definitely was cheating because my opponents didn't have set 3 cards, but I loved it personally, and my opponents loved it. And that's the biggest thing to me. While I was playing those games, none of my opponents went, this is fucked, I hate this, blah, blah, blah. All of them went, oh, this is awesome. I can't wait to play this. Oh, can I get the list for this? Oh, what are some other ways that you build in Grievous? And it was just that. They were so excited to just see something that wasn't Boba, that was doing something different, that was like, oh, yellow villain, yellow-green villain, but I don't know what to expect. They'd go, what cards? They'd be like, name the cards in my deck, and they'd go, oh, Overwhelming Barrage. And that would be the only one they ever got. Because it was a bunch of droids and weird other cards. Because Grievous accommodates for it. Because Asajj accommodates for it. Because Cad Bane accommodates for it. Even Thrawn accommodates for it.
One day I'll build a good Thrawn deck.
But this set 3 is going to be, in my opinion, the biggest set of the year so far, because it's the Clone Wars, and I think right now the current fan base loves the Clone Wars more than anything. It's so fun to play sealed, but now there's no worry to play constructed. You can take your constructed, your sealed cards, build that constructed deck, go to locals, and not have to worry about playing against the same thing 10 times. It's going to be a jungle out there when the set first comes out. Some of you have already started testing it, and that's good. That's great, even.
And all your testing just got flipped on its head. Because you thought Boba was still going to be meta.
I actually saw a lot of comments on that post, and a lot of them, genuinely a lot of them, were like, I've been testing this new set, and it made me depressed. Because all I could think about was, man, this sucks into Boba Fett. And there were people who were testing decks, running the gauntlet into unmodified set 2 Boba decks with completely upgraded set 3 decks. And Boba beat them, like 9 out of 10 times.
And as we were saying before, like, Cunning Villain isn't going anywhere.
No, it's getting better in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Cunning Villain is still going to be at the top of these of tournaments.
Oh yeah, watch out for Grievous.
But it's not going to be 80% of decks.
And it's going to be unique.
That was an exaggeration, but
it's going to be unique.
Yeah.
I think it's a big. Even if Yellow Villain takes up 80% of all of the colors in the game, well, that's like 6 leaders that are Yellow Villain, and they're all really interesting. 7. One's even hero as well, and they're all.
It's actually a huge buff to Palpatine. Because
Yeah.
we talked a lot about Palpatine of can you survive your opponent's leader flip turn?
With Boba,
And Boba, you just
You just couldn't. But now
You might be able to.
build up those awesome Rube Goldberg machine Palpatine decks and just go, go, go.
But that's where we're going to end it today. Thank you much for coming. Thank you for listening. Again, there is no gameplay this week.
Next week we'll get our cards. I'm pretty
Next
sure.
week we are Next week we'll have our cards. So next week gameplay. There will be a gameplay, but it will be us filming our pre-release and giving you gameplay of that. And depending
Which
on
we
what
know you
happens, we will see about the podcast. I'm not 100% sure, but I guess you'll just have to tune in next week and find out. But until then, Boba's gone,
We love
and
you.
we're still here.
And we love you.
Bye.
Bye.